Some people build games in Unity, and then others use Unreal Engine. But me personally, well, I like to build games in PowerPoint. Today, I'm going to show you how to build one of my annual Halloween games. Now, I do one of these every year, and every year it's a different game, and the animations are all different, but this one, this year, was a little bit special. Now, make sure you watch until the end. There's a lot of detail in how the animations are built, and if you miss a step or miss a detail, it's not going to work the way that it's supposed to. In this video, I'm going to push PowerPoint way beyond what it was really meant to do, and in the process, break a few rules.
Come to think of it, I don't have any rules.
Now, before we get started, just a quick warning. This video is going to be a little bit longer than most just because of some of the detail that goes into the build that I'm about to demonstrate for you. But that's important. I'm going to walk you through every step of the build process just because the detailed settings are going to be that important to the end result. Again, the end result is a highly interactive game that your audience is going to really enjoy. Now, I've looked around the internet, and frankly, I'm not seeing anybody creating builds like the one I'm about to demonstrate for you today. So here's the deal.
Sure, I can help. You gotta help me.
What?
Yes, I am going to show you exactly how to build this, but I need help too. This is a young channel. I'm just getting started out, and every single subscription helps. So please, if you haven't done so already, click that subscribe button. It really helps me out a lot more than you think. And for you, it's absolutely free, no commitment whatsoever. And frankly, I need all the help I can get. All right, so let's get to the point. My name is JJ Atkins. I'm a professional instructional designer and educator. I've been working with PowerPoint and similar programs for just about 30 years, and now I'm sharing all that knowledge and experience on my new channel. I call it the Slide Hustle.
Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice.
It's showtime.
Okay, let's get this tutorial started. There's a lot of information to cover. This video is probably going to be a little bit longer than most because there's a lot of detail to address when it comes to these animations, but I think you'll find that if you stay tuned to the end, watch through the whole thing, catch the detail that I'm going to add in here, you're going to be able to make some really amazing animations and an overall really enjoyable game. Now, before I dive into it, let me just mention that the artwork is my own personal artwork. If you're interested in seeing more of that, I have a whole other channel dedicated to it. I'll also put a link to my art channel in the description. Okay, so let's take a look at one of our example slides here. This is really a perfect example of a simpler puzzle that can be used to really kind of explain how this game works. So to put it simply, this is essentially a Halloween hangman game, or if you're more familiar, Wheel of Fortune, just without the wheel. The idea is that people, the audience, are able to pick letters, and the host can click on those letters in the alphabet up at the top of the screen and reveal anything that might be a correct guess. If there are incorrect guesses, well, we'll deal with that a little bit later. But in this demonstration right now, you can see that the puzzle slowly reveals itself as letters are chosen, and eventually somebody can guess the final answer. In this case, the final answer, big reveal, trick or treat. Now that was just the first puzzle. They do get a little bit tougher from there. But the big thing to understand here is that this is basically a repeated pattern. Once you can build the animations for one of these puzzles, then a whole series of them become a lot easier to make, especially if you're using a lot of copy and paste. Again, this is something I'll get into detail a little bit later, but the summary here is that there's 13 of these puzzles. And bear in mind, there's going to be a penalty if you click a wrong letter or if you choose a wrong letter. A little something like that. Just a simple little animation to signify an incorrect guess. Now at the end, everybody gets to see a little plug for my Instagram channel, and I'll ask you to go follow me there also. Thanks. And what's really kind of key to it is the animation elements. So what I'm going to do is just take away all the elements that really don't matter to how the game actually functions. And it really looks a little something like this. The art is nice and the backgrounds, help add to the mood. But everything that's being accomplished here is being accomplished within animations with the alphabet up at the top and the actual puzzle letters themselves. And just to make sure we're clear here, the buttons up at the top, and that's what these are buttons that I've kind of created to represent each letter in the alphabet. And each of these letters has a custom animation depending on whether the letter is contained in the final puzzle or if the letter is not contained in the final puzzle, and we'll talk about what happens when you get there in a second. So if I wanted to take this backwards one more step, we could take a look at something like this. This is essentially the template that I use to build each one of the puzzles. And that's kind of the point here, is that I'm trying to make it so that I don't have to repeat the same effort over and over and over again every time I want to create a puzzle. This template gets about half the work done for me because that work is mostly contained to this alphabet, or the series of buttons that represent the alphabet up at the top of the slide. Now again, this is all based on animations, so let's take a closer look at these animations, see how they're set up, and I'll do a bit of a demonstration as well. Now, a couple things here. Again, we're going to focus on the alphabet up at the top in just a second, but I also have some placeholders here I want to point out. I have the tombstone with a letter in it, and we will copy and paste this to form our puzzle in just a few minutes. Also, every puzzle should have some sort of a subject, so that way you have a clue or a hint, and I've got that represented down here. There's no animation tied to this. We'll just call it a phrase, if that helps. And a little bit later, we'll explain this button with the number 1 down at the bottom. That's also pretty important. Okay, so back to the alphabet up at the top of the slide. The main animations tied to this are very, very specific in terms of their settings. So I'm going to spend some time paying attention to the animation pane over on the side of the screen. And what I've already got set up here is the animations for all the letters except for the letter Z. It may not look like that. There is a little bit of a shift that seems to happen with these animation icons. So to be clear, the A letter is animated, and that animation icon is located askew and to the left. And if you can just remember that, that's how you'll know that Z doesn't have an animation, but Y does. Y has animation that's attached to this little icon right here. So I've deleted the one for Z so I could demonstrate how to create this animation. And again, pay close attention because it's not so much the animation as some of the detail in the settings. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight Z. Now this is not anything special. This is just a shape with the letter Z in it. So it's a square that I've drawn on screen and then just typed in the letter Z. There's nothing else specific about it. It's the animation that performs the trick. All right, so here I have the shape, the square, with the letter Z typed in it, highlighted, so I can add an animation. The animation is going to be object color. This is one of your emphasis animations. I want to click on it. And what it's really doing here is saying that anytime I click on this makeshift button, I'm going to turn the entire button to a color. And in this case, it defaults to orange, but we're going to change that in just a second. So what I'm going to do is come over to my animation pane. I'm going to select the Z animation, and then I'm going to go in and change some of the settings. And I'm going to kind of pull those up here so we can take a closer look. Now, the first thing I want to do is I want to change this color. This is the color that the box will become once I click on it in the midst of the game. Orange is fine, but I find that black helps everything kind of blend together, especially with that kind of Halloween theme that we're going with. And what you'll see here is that as you select a letter, it will turn black, so that way you know which letters have already been selected and you don't click on them more than once. In addition, we have another setting down here under triggers, and this is a pretty important one. This is really kind of what makes the whole thing work. So if you've been paying attention up until now, this is where the big secret gets revealed. Under trigger, it is not part of a click sequence. We're going to go down to this second option here, and we're going to open up a drop-down box, and we're going to make Z refer to itself. I know that sounds a little bit weird, but what this is basically doing is making sure that when you click on Z, several things happen at once, not just the color change. Because that's the point here. Z, if we just assume for a second, is not going to be part of our puzzle, then we need to add an animation to it to say what happens when you pick an incorrect letter. Now, in this case, what it's going to do is it's going to hyperlink to another area inside the slideshow. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go under hyperlink. This has already been set up, so I'm going to click on Edit Hyperlink. And when I click on Edit Hyperlink, again, it's going to default to another slide inside this game. And the slide that I wanted to go to is slide 22. I'll show you what that slide looks like after we get a little bit further in the show. So now that that's set up, everything is good, except for setting up the puzzle itself. Again, the assumption here with this alphabet that I've kind of made by default is that every single one of these letters are assumed to be an incorrect answer or an incorrect letter until I change the setting on it. All right, so let's kind of go back up here. This is a puzzle that's kind of already been formed. The answer here is going to be trick or treat, and what we need to do is take a look at each one of these letters that are correct answers and make sure that the animation not only turns the box to a different color, but also reveals these letters as they're selected. And if we take a close look at T, you'll see that's a bit more of a feat here because T is represented 3 times in this puzzle. Now, take a look at my animation pane and you'll see these animations have already been set up. The one up on top here with the gold star is the animation that changes the color of the box to black so I know that the letter has been selected. But in addition, every T in this puzzle has its own animation attached to this. And that animation is just an appear animation. So if I click on it, you can see here, it's going to be a fade in for an appearance. Nothing fancy, just a quick fade in. And the only setting I'm really going to change here is how the animation starts. Instead of it happening on a click, it's going to happen with the previous animation. And the previous animation in this case is going to be that click on the T that changes the color. So in other words, the reason that all these little T animations are bundled together is because when the first one kicks off, when I click the letter T in the alphabet up at the top, it will automatically trigger these other 3 animations to reveal the T's in the puzzle. Now, this is a bit of an involved effort, no doubt, because you will have to do this for every letter. There are 3 R's in this puzzle, but only 1 O, only 1 I, etc. And so you'll have to go in here and deal with each one of these letters individually, and you can see my animation pane has a lot going on here. Now remember, the trick to this is really just setting up that alphabet ahead of time, and that way you can duplicate the slide or just copy and paste this alphabet at the top of every slide, and you'll have a bunch of those animations pre-built. And then you can just change whichever ones suit your particular puzzle. So if we take a look at an example of a puzzle, you can see here that aside from the background elements in the artwork, everything else is relatively the same. It's the same alphabet up at the top. This is just a copy and paste job. And I just customized animations to appear or do the default error, depending on what letters appear in this particular puzzle. Now, without any further ado, let me show you what happens when it goes wrong. Click the wrong letter, one that doesn't exist inside of our puzzle, and you're going to end up at slide 22. And slide 22 is our error slide here. This is kind of set to automatically animate. It's based off of the Beetlejuice movie where the question is, can you be scary? The slide here is designed to automatically advance after, I think, about a second, and it goes to this where we get a little animation that kind of jiggles, and there you go. A little something like that. Okay, so ultimately, it's all meant to be, kind of fun and engaging, and I definitely got a lot of laughs when I did premiere this game for a live audience. But what's important here is these little buttons. Eventually, if you get a wrong answer, you're going to end up here, but how do you make sure you get back to the initial puzzle and pick up where you left off? That's where these buttons here are so important. This game, as designed, has 13 separate puzzles, and each button here represents a route to get back to a particular puzzle. All you have to do is just make sure that you remember which puzzle you're working with, so you click the right button. In this case, we were working on puzzle 1, so let's go back and take a look at that. And puzzle 1 was right here, and if you notice, this button down in the lower left-hand corner is the reminder of what puzzle we're on, so that way I don't forget. You may or may not need that in your own build, but I have found that when I'm doing 10 or 12 or 13 puzzles, that little reminder, at least in the middle of a live game, can be very, very helpful and keep you from getting distracted. Now, what's also really fun about this game is that each puzzle has some sort of a clue. And again, in this case, it's a phrase, but I've also got Beetlejuice offering little hints here and there too. All the kids are saying it for trick or treat. Under this puzzle, the monster under the bed is the answer, but he's not a thing, he's a friend because the subject of the puzzle is a thing. I tried to kind of vary up the backgrounds a little bit to make it at least a little bit more interesting and not show the same background for every puzzle. Your mileage may vary on this, do what you want to do. But it's also fun to kind of sneak in little jokes here, like, are you going to eat that, or something to that effect. As we get towards the end of this puzzles, I wanted to also point out here that all the puzzles were meant to be Halloween themed. So spooky answers or creepy themed answers were kind of the intent. So longer puzzles like this one were something I had to delve into eventually, even though I was trying to avoid them. There's only so much room on the slide, and something like this is a lot of animations. Again, the animation pane is very, very long with a lot of triggers on this. Make sure you do testing. Testing is what's going to ensure that every animation works and every letter works when it comes time to the live game. One of the worst things that can happen in the middle of a live game is to have something like this not function because one letter wasn't built the way that it should have been, and it kind of breaks the whole game down. The other thing I also like to do is offer some sort of a little ending, a little kind of conclusion. In my mind's eye, Beetlejuice is meant to be the host of this game. And so at the end, he's going to say, thanks, it's been a day to dismember. And I'm going to give a little shout out here, a shameless plug, to my art channel on Instagram. And again, there's going to be a link down in the description for my art channel on YouTube if you'd like to take a look at that also. Again, a nice little fade out to the end is something that I think really helps. And that's it. That is the game and the animation in a nutshell. Now, again, it was a lot of work to put into it, but it creates a spectacular effect, especially if you can find some shortcuts to copy and paste some of these elements. What I'd also suggest here is you go back and take a look at this video a couple more times. And if you have any questions or something that's not working the way that it should, leave me a comment. I'm happy to do a follow-up video, or if it's simple enough, just address specific questions in the comments. Now, one more time, I'd like to implore you, to beg you, if you don't mind, to make sure that you click on that subscribe button. This is a new channel, it's a small channel, and the YouTube algorithm doesn't necessarily help out the smaller channels as much as they possibly could. So if you can help me out, click on that subscribe button, share, and the notification bell helps as well. It'll let you know when new videos are coming. I'm going to try to get one of these out about once a week. And another thing you might want to leave in comments is if there's anything else you want to see. Do I need to go back to basics and take a look at some of the foundations of PowerPoint? Or is there something else a little bit more advanced that you'd like a little bit more information about? Let me know. I'm happy to help. And in the meantime, thanks for tuning in.